Hey everybody, welcome to the Roundtable of Wraith. This is Chris bringing you another deck tech video. Today we're going to discuss a deck I played at our recent skirmish event at Fair Game in Downers Grove, Illinois. And this is a Brute deck featuring Rhinar. He's not quite the Reckless Rampage just yet, but he's getting his way up there to the full hero status. But this is a deck that I have dubbed the Unmovable Beatdown. So let's get into it. Rhinar, the Unmovable Beatdown. So this skirmish event took place on Sunday, June 27th at our local store called Fair Game, again in Downers Grove, Illinois. Fantastic store, great community, and it was a pretty small event. We had 16 players, coming out of the pandemic. This is one of the first events that Fair Game was able to put on as far as hosting people in the store. So they wanted to cap it at 16 people, but had a great turnout. Some people that we've kind of made connections with via the Discord. We play in a Discord league through Fair Game, and it was a good mixture of all skill levels and just people wanting to get together and have some fun. So speaking on that note, compared to some other table members you have seen, Ryan and Jim and Mark, I kind of fall into more of the casual category, I guess, right now. I don't really like to use labels to, kind of differentiate play styles or play preferences or things like that. But, to this point, I haven't been super honed in on getting a ton of reps with like every character, like, playing the meta deck or trying to figure out the best possible thing to best possible deck to give me a chance to win at an event. So, that said, I wanted to play something at this skirmish that was kind of not super obvious as far as being like a tier deck, as they like to say, and something that I was kind of familiar with. So back in Welcome to Wraith and Arcane Rising, I did play a lot of Brute. I did play a lot of Rhinar. And as you're looking at the screen right now, you're thinking, well, this deck doesn't really fall into a Brute traditional style. And yes, you would be correct. But similar, kind of on a similar note to not wanting to play something that's like tier 1, I also kind of enjoy playing different decks that maybe aren't super obvious or aren't, the best thing going at that time. So the deck you're seeing here is I took to a 2-2 finish. I lost to Bravo and Chain at the skirmish. So with 16 people, they did a 4 rounds of Swiss and a cut to a top 4, and they did a bracket style for the top 4 there to kind of get it to the champion, who was Ryan, one of our team members. If you saw his deck tech video on Dorinthia, make sure you go check that out. But the general premise of this deck, the Unmovable Beatdown, is you're trying to block everything your opponent does, keep your life total at a pretty high area because you're blocking everything with immovables. You're gaining life with Sigil of Solace, you're blocking with Sink Belows or Fate Foreseens, and then eventually you're trying to set up a couple turns to where you're playing 2 or 3 barraging beatdowns and attacking your opponent to where they're in a position where they only have 1 card left in their hand or 0 cards left in their hand, to where the barraging beatdown is online to give the extra power buff to push through a couple huge attacks, if not maybe 1 big attack to win the game. Another cool aspect about this deck is that it doesn't really take a lot of high-costed Majestics to play. You're seeing 2 Command and Conquers on the screen, and as all Flesh and Blood players know, Command and Conquer is one of the best, if not the best, just vanilla in a vacuum good card, possibly the best card in that sort of lens of thinking about it that way in the entire game. However, if you don't own Command and Conquers, this sort of style of deck, you could replace those Command and Conquers with a number of things and still have the deck function without just having that general raw power of the CNC. So, if you look at the deck here, Bonehead Barrier and Remembrance are called super rares. And if you're a little newer to the game, if you're not familiar with the super rare, back in Welcome to Wraith and Arcane Rising, they did have a category called super rare, which is underneath the Majestic. So the Majestic is on top. Well, I guess Legendary is on top. Majestic, and they had super rares. So, now in Monarch they've condensed the super rares, and the Majestics just be one unit of Majestic rarity level. But these are super cheap. Burnout Barrier is super cheap card, and Remembrance is, I'm assuming, pretty cheap. I don't know off the top of my head. The only Majestics in the deck are, again, Command and Conquer, and Tome of Fendal. And as I'll get to in a second, I've actually cut the Enlightened Strikes out of the deck, so you don't even really need those either. This is a really affordable budget deck that's a different kind of style to play. If you're kind of looking for something different, if you enjoy Brute, or if you have some of these cards, or even if you don't, this is a cheap deck to kind of pick up just to play some fun, different style of Blitz. And then looking at the equipment, I guess I should say, speaking on that note, I am fortunate enough to own a Scabskin Leathers and an Arcanite Skullcap. But again, I'm not playing the Spring Tunic. And even if I did own the Spring Tunic, I don't know if I would play it in this deck, because I would rather have the Barkbone Strapping, because it has a 1 armor Battle Worn, where the Tunic does not. If you block with the Tunic, it gets destroyed. So, again, trying to be super defensive in this deck, the Barkbone actually I think is a little bit better than the Tunic. So, this is a deck that you don't need the Tunic. Or, you could play it, but I would, again, probably not do that. So, great budget option. If you're a newer player, and maybe if you have a couple of these cards from, Welcome to Wraith or Arcane Rising. If not, though, the rest of these singles are really cheap to pick up. And, something different that's kind of off the beaten path as far as traditional Brute style play. To expand on that note about the different style of play, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, the idea of this deck is to block as much as you can, and while you're doing that, you're simultaneously trying to set up your deck for a turn or two of multiple barraging beatdowns in one turn to intimidate your opponent's hand away, and then attacking them either with the Romping Club, if you are fortunate enough to have 3 barraging beatdowns in one turn, or we also have 2 Pack Hunts and 2 Smash Instincts as kind of a pseudo third barraging beatdown. So in a turn where you have a Pack Hunt or a Smash Instinct, both of these cards intimidate on their own when you play it. So those cards allow you to have a hand of only 2 beatdowns. And then when you play the Pack Hunt or the Smash Instinct, you're intimidating the third card away from their hand. So you're guaranteed to get that barraging beatdown online. If for some reason you need to block with the beatdown or use a beatdown early, we do have 2 Remembrances to shuffle those cards back into your deck to help you with the later game. And we also see 2 Energy Potions and 2 Time Snap Potions to kind of help you get set up for a big turn, maybe using Tome of Fendal to kind of draw up to maybe 5 or 6 cards in a turn to really kind of get a density of beatdowns to really make that big turn or a couple turns worthwhile. So continuing on the note about Pack Hunt and Smash Instinct being pretty vital to enabling you to get that triple Intimidate turn off, I have, since I played in the Skirmish, before the Skirmish, I had probably played 2 or 3 games with this deck leading up to that event just to get a little feel for it. So I didn't really have, so again, take what I say with a grain of salt. I didn't test, as they like to say, play test against, Chain, Ira, Kano, any of the top tier decks in Blitz. I didn't really have any practice against. That being said, in the Skirmish itself, I did play Chain one time, and the Chain player killed me on the last turn. If they didn't kill me on that turn, I would have fatigued them out. They would have went through the entire deck. So, that, I guess that kind of speaks to the blocking power, of playing 6 Unmovables and a couple defensive reacts and sigils in your deck. But since that event, I've made some changes, and so here is the updated list after playing about, whatever that is, 4, 5, 6, 7 games with the deck. So we went up to 4 Pack Hunts because, again, the Pack Hunt really helps you, and an Alpha Rampage. The cards or the attacks that intimidate themselves really help you to not rely on needing to have 3 barraging beatdowns in your hand, because that is a pretty difficult thing to actually line up unless somehow you have a turn where you have a Tome of Fendal in the arsenal, and on that turn where you draw up after arsenaling the Tome of Fendal, you have a barraging beatdown or 2 in your hand, and you decide to not block on that next turn, on your opponent's turn, to try to draw up and find more. that's really the only way you're going to get to 3 beatdowns. It really doesn't happen. Even in the late game, like, it's really difficult to stack your deck when you're pitching to get 3 beatdowns in one hand. So, having the Pack Hunt or the Alpha Rampage, I feel like is a good include to try to punch in that third Intimidate card. Also, I cut the Time Snap potions. I found them very underwhelming and basically not necessary in the deck. So I swapped them in for a Potion of Strength and something else I can't remember off the top of my head. But, with having the Scab Skin Leathers, that's like your Time Snap potion. And, really, also in this deck, you really don't need to have extra actions that often because Barraging Beatdown does have Go Again. So the only real time in the early stage of the game or in the middle of the game when you're trying to set up your combo, the only time you're trying to get extra actions is when you want to play a potion onto the table and also pitch a card to just attack for 4 with the club. That's like the real function of having 2 actions. Otherwise, you don't really need it. Like, you can just pitch your card and swing the club. That's like your main action most of the time. Pitch and swing the club. Or like I said, try to get 2 actions and put a potion down and then swing the club. Otherwise, you're just blocking. And on that turn, you go crazy. Unless you're playing a Tum of Fendal, you don't need 2 actions. Like I said, the Beatdown all has Go Again. So I feel like the Time Snaps weren't really necessary. And obviously with any potion, they don't block, which makes it feel even worse. So I went down to 1 Potion of Strength because on that turn, you're going to combo anyway. You just want to have extra power. You just want to kill them or deal as much damage as possible. So this is the current deck that, again, after some updates, 1 Alpha Rampage. It could be right to play more of those, but Pack Hunt serves a very similar purpose. Granted, it doesn't have the 9 attack, but, it's either we have 5 extra power, but need to have an extra card in your hand, or you just go down to 5 power for the yellow, and you don't need to discard a card. So that can actually be a pretty big factor in a deck like this. But so yeah, guys, this is the, guys and girls, and this is the deck. And I should mention, the inspiration for this deck was because back in late 2019 now? Yeah, wow, 2019. When Welcome to Wraith first came out, the official Flesh and Blood channel had a little versus series where they had 2 developers playing each other, and one of the developers or designers, whatever you want to call it, Jason Chung, I think his name is, played a Brute Rhinar one turn kill deck, which they dub OTK, and his deck was basically this design: block everything, get potions on the board, set up 1 giant turn where you barrage, and swing. So I stole his idea, and from his idea, I kind of updated it to include a couple new cards from newer sets, because that deck was only from Welcome to Wraith set only. So all credit to Jason Chung and that kind of different take on Brute to get me to this place. But again, really fun deck. It's really it's fun to play it against people, because especially at a tournament, because most people, when you put down Rhinar, they're clearly expecting just traditional Rhinar. All 6 attacks, discard, intimidate you, Blood Rush Bellow, all that kind of stuff. And when you throw down the first Unmovable, they're like, oh, okay. And then when you continue to play Unmovable after Unmovable after Unmovable, you can see the frustration start to build up, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. And then when you get them with the combo, it's really fun to do. And I will say, me not being the most experienced or best player, it's not the easiest task to set it up. Obviously every game your card's going to come in a different order, so it's always a puzzle to figure out what's the best sequence of things for me to do to maximize my defense and also maybe punch through some damage. So, I feel like traditionally, except for like Bravo and maybe Ninja, like defense, control Ninja, these kind of styles of decks, maybe OTK, Runeblade, 1-turn kill Runeblade, these sort of styles of super defensive decks aren't like super popular, I guess, especially in Blitz, where Blitz is so fast. And, like I said, again, I did not test against Chain, I did not test against Kano, I did not test against Ninja. So, but super fun to play, and it's a different style to kind of maybe change your perspective on the game and kind of mix up your, honing your skills as far as the type of player and the type of decks you like to play. So this has been Chris with the Roundtable of Wraith. Thanks to everyone, especially people if you're watching that you were at the Fair Game tournament. If I happened to play you, I know I played against Mike, Levi, Natalie, and I played against Roundtable member Jim. So thanks to you guys for playing. Always super fun. And give this deck a try, guys and girls, or if anyone else has any suggestions to make this deck better, please let us know. But until next time, this is Chris from the Roundtable signing off. We'll see you later.